Welcome, everyone, to the L7C podcast. We're back, NBA playoff edition today. We are going to be previewing the 2022-2023 NBA playoffs that are going to be taking place at time of recording this Saturday, or in theory, they've already been taking place with the play-in. So we got the NBA aficionado with us, Mr. Evan Debo. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Martin. It's good to hear from you. Good to be back in another round of playoff discussion, and I'm excited. Today's the official start of the first round of the 2023 NBA playoffs.
Yeah. So for our fans, we got a lot we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about the play-in that's happened the past couple of days. Then we're going to go into the round ones. You know, if you've listened to us, we give our predictions, thoughts, and that. Then we're going to talk about the award finalists. But before we do that, we're going to kick it back all the way till October, our very first NBA pod of this basketball season, and see how close we were with the 10 teams that were that we picked. And Evan hasn't heard this yet, so you're going to get live reaction from him. I just finished listening to our episode last night, so I could get this down for y'all. Let's go. Evan, do you want to hear how we did in the East first or the West?
Let's go East first.
Okay. So the East first, we both had Milwaukee being the number one seed, and they were the number one seed. So that's 1-for-1 for both of us. Number 2 seed this year is the Boston Celtics. Obviously, this is before when we did this, all the trades and all the craziness that happens with the NBA season. I had the Nets at number 2. You had Boston at number 2, so you are 2 for 2 right now, man. Number 3, I had the Celtics. You had the Sixers. The Sixers are the number 3 seed. 3 for 3 right now, Evan. You are 3 for 3. We both had the Cavs at 4, so you are 4 for 4. If this was the old playoff format, you already got the first half completely right. Number 5 seed. I had the Sixers and you had the Heat. Number 5, surprising enough, is the New York Knicks. But to give you credit, Evan, you had the Knicks in the playoffs. I did not. So just again, but you had them a little bit lower. Number 6, Evan's right back on track. You had the Nets at 6. I had the Heat at 6. So you got 5 out of 6 in the East completely right. Number 7 was the Heat. No, number 7, we picked the Hawks, and it was the Heat. Number 8 was Atlanta. We had Toronto. Number 9 was Toronto. I had the Bulls at 9, and you had the Knicks at 9. And then number 10 was the Bulls, which you had at 10. And I don't know why the hell I went this way. I had Charlotte at 10. So, Evan, a majority of the seedings, man, you actually nailed.
And let's just say on the Astros part, who's the number 7 seed after the play-in discussion?
From our predictions or from like real life?
From our predictions.
We had the Hawks.
Real life ended up being, Hawks now. Hawks will get the 7 seed, which we'll recap in a second. There's so much. When we're taking shots, this is probably about. I should have gone and played the lottery that day if I was going to get that many right. Because I think it's informed guessing. That we do. Mm-hmm. We couldn't predict the Nets just completely cut and bait with the Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant experiment. I have my hesitancy that Kyrie could string together because he has not shown us he could string together 3 months of playing basketball. So I think that's why initially I had him a little bit lower. As high as I was on the Cavs, I'm glad I kept myself in check and didn't have them any higher than they needed to be, but also was realistic to listen. I think injuries absolutely hampered this team last year, and they are a home court advantage team, and they ended up being that. So, there's so many different moving parts. There's so many different, things. I think it was good on the East side of things this year that there were so many teams that, every team battles injuries, but for the most part, most of the teams at the top have their horses. throughout the season. So I think that helps, and you don't get that every year. We could pick the same folks heading into the next season, kind of in a similar order, and then year one, tweak of an ankle or tweak of a knee from a Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum going down or Giannis going down, and then that just changes your whole seeding format. But by and large, these were the teams that while the seedings might have been a little bit different here and there, that outside of the Charlotte thing with Bridges and that ongoing domestic violence piece, and then the injury to Ball, that these are the horses we thought were going to be in the best 10 in the East.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree. It just, obviously, since we're doing these in October, like you already said, with all the craziness that has happened since then, and still, especially with the lower seeds, still getting a majority of them that were in the playoffs and in the play-in correct. Like you said, I like that term, informed guessing.
We had a lot of changes, I think, this year in scheduling that might have really definitely helped your teams that could have historically slipped up a lot with this pod baseball scheduling, right? So we had you'd go see do kind of a back-to-back. Cavs would go to Miami, and then they would play a game on a Tuesday in Miami, and then they play that same team again on Thursday. That in these pod schedules, I think that's more conducive to teams either splitting games they historically would have lost. If you're traveling on to a next city, if you were going on to Orlando or going on to a different venue, you're changing hotels, you're changing flights, they're extending a road trip. So I think potentially, for your teams that are more durable, that have more depth, they're prepared for that a little bit more. I think so that assisted the win column, as opposed to years past. Maybe there's some more fluctuation there in terms of getting some more losses on the calendar just for such long road streaks.
No, I agree. Then when you move out west, this is the one where we got we got some teams right. Is just seeding, and again, like the trades and all of that was a little different. So these were the top 10 teams in the West. We had the Golden State Warriors at number one. Obviously the new number. We had Denver Nuggets were the number one seed. The number 2 seed, I had the Clippers, and you had Denver. Number 2 is the Memphis Grizzlies. Number 3, you had the Clippers. I had Memphis. Number 3, the Darlings, the Sacramento Kings. Number 4, you had Memphis. I had Denver because we had different ones. And number 4 was the Phoenix Suns. Number 5, we both had the Pelicans, and that's where the Clippers landed. Number 6, I had the Suns. You had the T-Wolves. It was the Golden State Warriors. Number 7, I had the Mavericks. You had the Suns. It was the Los Angeles Lakers. Number 8, I had the Timberwolves, and you had the Mavs, and it was the Timberwolves. Number 9, we both had the Lakers. It was the New Orleans Pelicans. And another one, number 10, you had the Kings. I had Portland, and another darling who had a 0.1% chance. It was the OKC Thunder. Evan, thoughts on our picks in the West?
Yeah, I mean, the Suns acquisition of KD, at the trade deadline, obviously kind of gave them a shot in the arm where we thought, I think Chris Paul was going to fall off, or I for sure thought, old Chris Paul was going to fall off for sure. They lose a lot of depth in that trade. But Martin, the biggest takeaway I want to do right now is let's go ahead and I'll let you start off. You don't know what you're doing yet, but I'll let you start off because I know you got thoughts. Let's do our eulogy for the season that was for the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh man. It's for people, obviously, if you listen, they got Kyrie Irving. They gave up a pretty hefty price to get him, which on a flip side, you're just thinking if you were just going to do this, you might as well have just re-signed Brunson in the summer, but that's a whole other issue for another day. When they were at a point where they were as high as the 4th seed in the West, and then they steadily dropped. Then they went to the 7th, and then for people, if you don't know, they did not make the play-in game. They didn't make the playoffs. They were in a elimination game. I forget, was it against Indiana? Who they had the elimination game against, pretty much, where they sat everyone, and
Luka only played the first quarter and they sat.
Yeah. And if that isn't indicative to some of the stuff that we've talked about on previous podcasts, I don't know what is, because in my mind, if I'm a player on that team, sure, a top 10 pick, but you don't know those picks are going to come out. We have a chance to make the playoffs, and have a shot, and you elect to go that route. If I'm a player on Dallas, I don't know how I trust management stuff going forward, because I thought that was an utter disgrace and embarrassing for the West. This team was the Western Conference runner-up last year, and for them to get a better player and just get killed, it's embarrassing, man. There's a lot of questions. Obviously, you can't fire Mark Cuban; he's the owner. That's not happening. But just looking at that, it's if I'm Kyrie, which do I want to come back if they give me a max contract? Do I want to? If I'm Luka, is hey, how much longer am I here? Because now I might want out of here. It was just bad. That I understand people tanking when you quote unquote don't have anything to play for playoff wise, but to do that on a grand stage, I've never seen anything like that. What were your thoughts on that, Evan?
We've got all kinds of ethics issues. We've got all kinds of issues. We've got issues with the integrity of the game here. And that was reflected with the NBA, who did an investigation yesterday, slapped Mark Cuban with a $750,000 fine for quotes from Joe Dumars, former Piston, with Bad Boy Pistons, now working with the NBA. Dallas Mavericks' decision to restrict key players from participating in an elimination game last Friday against Chicago undermined the integrity of our sport. The Mavericks' actions failed our fans and our league. They demonstrated through their actions and public statements the organization's desire to lose the game in order to improve the chances of keeping its first-round pick in the 2023 NBA draft. That pick should fall, I think, 10 or 11 or so, but $750,000 isn't nothing. Mark is just sleeps in a bed of cash, sure, but it's warranted. I would love to see them take a draft pick from him.
I think they should take the top 10 pick away. That would really send a message.
Yeah, So I think it was interesting. So, Jason Kidd in the hot seat when you have a season like that. There's a lot of comparisons to the first LeBron run, and you've got a generational superstar talent, who impacts the game in so many ways. What are you doing to support them? What are you doing to give bench depth and put a team around them that's going to win before they get dissatisfied, they don't sign contracts, and they leave? And Kidd's been in the hot seat, and he very publicly, he got on the stand after that game, and he said, I was directed by my supervisors how to approach this game in terms of minutes and everything else, and he dogged Cuban, and he dogged the GM, whose name eludes me, but he wanted it known. Listen, they're likely going to come back and fire me, but that was saving face for whoever Jason, if that happens, where Jason Kidd's next stop would be, to say, listen, he was in a crappy situation. He just went to the West Finals last year. And, based on how this team's constructed, Martin, they gave up Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, and a later future first for Kyrie Irving. I'm putting on record now, Kyrie Irving's not returning. You know why? Because the one constant you can predict with Kyrie Irving is Kyrie Irving packs up his bags and Kyrie Irving leaves. And I think Kyrie is interested in going to the Los Angeles Lakers. I think there's Los Angeles Laker interest in acquiring Kyrie Irving.
Still don't know how that would do cap-wise, though.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the numbers again after the Lakers' recent trade. It was a possibility before they brought on some of the new folks, Jared Vanderbilt, Luke Beasley, what have you. So I need to look again on the space side of things. But I think Dallas knows they have to give him a sizable contract to retain him to justify their bad decision before. But I really don't trust Kyrie Irving enough that he feels vested in a part of the Dallas community, Martin. Kyrie Irving's a part of the Kyrie Irving community, and that dude is just going to keep popping towns.
Yeah, it made no sense when he asked for that trade, too, because if people remember when he asked for that trade, that's when he and the Nets, before KD came back, they were on a stride.
And part of the thing with Dallas, too, is, I mean, let's just talk X's and O's here. So, Kyrie Irving, basketball wizard like we've never seen, yo-yo the ball all over the place, all kinds of great things. Martin, this team, though, is so bad defensively. They couldn't stop. They could not stop, like, a water leak. They could not stop anything. I mean, they are bad. And a lot of that is Luka, too. I mean, Luka is not. I mean, they are just a black hole in the defensive end. You've got a bunch of streaky shooters and Tim Hardaway Jr. They just that last game, man, Frank Ntilikina. You got Jalen Hardy, who a good young stud. But I mean, they have nobody. Dallas Bertans. They acquired one of the Morris twins, Marquise from Boston in that trade. JaVale McGee is playing minutes in 2023. What are we doing here? This team is bad. Maxi Kleber's been out and injured. Maxi Kleber can play defense and get ahead of folks, but they rested Jalen Green in that final game. This team is atrocious. They need that first-round pick. I don't even know what else they have to move around stuff with, but we might be officially on Luka watch. So
I think we are. I think we are, though, because now it's like, all right, you had some you gutted the team that made it to the West Finals because you obviously lost Brunson and you want to get Kyrie, sure. But now this is the second quote unquote star player experiment that didn't work out. Kristaps Porzingis didn't work out. Now Kyrie hasn't worked out. Now you traded all those pieces and Kyrie's going to leave. So you gave up everything and they're going to get nothing in return. So it's like, what do you do next? This top 10 pick isn't going to be, the top 10 pick's not going to be a better player than Kyrie Irving. Like, not initially, maybe down the line, a slight chance, but that's going to be hard. So and also the thing that Evan in our lifetime watching basketball, which has been a constant thing, which it's a great city and all that, but free agents do not go to Dallas. They just don't.
The Christian Wood experiment failed this year.
He's going to be gone.
He's going to be gone. There's potentially some dark times ahead with the Dallas Mavericks here. Martin, in terms of the rest of the West, we'll get to the play-in games here. Obviously, the Sacramento Kings. What a season! I mean, I had them in my top 10, but no one saw this coming. I mean, they kind of replicated the Warriors' movement, off-ball movement. The pick and roll actions, the backdoor actions. They're outscoring everybody. Everybody's everybody. And that's with Mike Brown, a defensive mindset coach, doing that too. I mean, I don't think he got enough credit in Cleveland because of just who LeBron is in terms of the offensive sets. There'd be some things come out from players that, hey, I think Mike Brown really gets it from an X's and O's standpoint. On the offensive side of the ball, but when you got LeBron, it's a polarizing thing on offense where the ball just kind of stops when it gets to him. He does great things, and folks get disinterested, or folks don't move off balls they should and stuff. And that was the case there. So you give him the keys to the Ferrari, and you got all these great shooters. You acquire Malik Monk, you acquire Kevin Herter, De'Aaron Fox's resurgence this year. Sabonis is an MVP candidate. Light the beam, Martin. Light the beam. I'm excited to see one of these. I'm excited to see them in this opening round. We've got some great matchups, and we'll get to it again in a second where they fall. Actually, this one's already set. So, them playing the Warriors, it's going to be take the over. Whatever the point total is, if it's 240, take the over. These teams ain't playing defense.
I would also, to echo that, obviously the Kings are probably the biggest story because of how high they seeded. But in the West, too, also, I mean, Oklahoma City Thunder, again, they had like a 0.1% chance to make the play-in when the season started, especially when their number 2 pick check went down. But no one...
So much to be proud of.
Yeah, no one foresaw. And obviously they could have... Obviously, they didn't win against Minnesota. If they would have won that, they would have been in the playoffs. But again, they exceeded expectations exponentially. No one saw the true ascension that happened with SGA. Like the jump he had this year. I know we talked about it on the All-Star thing. He should have been the All-Star starter in the West. He's just not as popular as Steph Curry. And I think he should be the All-NBA point guard this year, first team. Like him.
How many times does that happen where you don't make the All-Star starter, but your first team All-NBA?
Yeah,
and he's going to be the other guard on their side of Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, because him, Giddey, all the Williams that are on the OKC Thunder.
All the Williams.
Give
me all the Williams.
If your last name is Williams, you were on that team. But it is just ridiculous. Like, SGA jumped up. He's averaged 31 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds on 51% shooting and 90% from the free throw. Youngest guard in NBA history to average 30 points and shoot 50% from the field. Like, the ascension is amazing. And they still have Chet coming back. They have all of the picks for the next 15 years. They are.
If you're Williams, you're getting drafted.
Yeah, they are in a fantastic position once again. And if you look at the Thunder, man, and if you look a couple years ago, obviously they had Durant, Harden, Westbrook, Ibaka, all of that, and they lost all of those players. And you would think they'd be a bottoms-dwelling team when you lose that type of talent. And they're like, no, we got stuff through the trade, yada, yada. We're going to keep fighting through, have all these picks. We're going to develop players. And now you're looking at SGA like, man, the Thunder might have their 4th MVP maybe 5 or something years from now. So it's amazing to see. God help the world if the ping pong balls randomly give them the number 1 pick.
Oh man, watch out. Because I think they don't have a small forward established just yet, but oh my gosh, can you imagine?
Yeah. It won't happen. It's just it's the fact they have a chance, and they were literally in the play-in. But no, now we expect things from them. But no, it's going to be great, man. But like you said, the play-in did happen these past couple of days. Since we're in the West, let's just stay in
let's talk through it.
Let's stay in the West. So the Lakers, back then, we had them at the 9th seed. This is before they had all the trades. They got the Russell Westbrook problem. They got rid of that. They got some shooters. Anthony Davis came back. They were able to climb all the way to the 7th seed. And they played the Timberwolves, who were hampered because their teammates do not like each other, apparently. And Rudy
a teammate punched another teammate.
Yeah. Not just any teammate. It was Rudy Gobert, who he's always in the news for the wrong reasons.
Unbelievable. So he gets suspended for that game in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Still ridiculous contract we'll never get off of. They gave up all their future cap leverage and flexibility and assets for this guy.
Yep.
And he's still what he is. The running joke I hear on pods all the time is who the Utah Jazz ended up acquiring in that deal. That you would not, and straight up, you would not trade Rudy. You would not trade Walker Kessler, rookie Walker Kessler, for Rudy Gobert. You would not.
Mm-hmm.
He blocks well. He had a great rookie season. He'll probably be the first team center, depending on what the forward jockeying is with Powell and a couple others on the all rookie team. But unimaginable what we watched transpire in the last regular season game. So his team, without him, goes down to LA. It goes down to the wire. I thought there were some really bad calls down the stretch, Martin, in that game. LeBron got this ridiculous loose ball call against him as if I forget who was diving after. I think it was Taurean Prince, but it said he fouled Taurean Prince going after the ball. That gave him a thing late. Anthony Davis's dumb 3-point foul at the end. Mike Conley hits all three of those. We go to overtime. Lakers pull it out, but I mean, Martin, they were exhausted. They pull it off. They get the 7th seed. They're going to be going to Memphis tomorrow at 3:00. But they gritted it out. They came up. LeBron had 30. They put in the work. That was the first playoff-like game in Staples in a long time. So obviously they had the bubble when they had their run. They had made the playoffs last year. That crowd was rocking. It was interesting. I don't normally see that or hear that in LA. I feel like a lot of times it's the kind of apathetic get their late crowd, everything else. But the crypto Staples. I said Staples earlier. It might go back to Staples.
Yeah, I mean Staples is what we grew. I would also say with the LeBron thing too, like it's weird because now it's 2 out of the past 3 years they've been in the bubble. They had the 1 year where they beat the Warriors in the bubble, and that's when Steph said this famous, "You don't want to see us next year," and they won the title. But they've had 2 bubbles, a couple not make the playoffs, and in the play-in, and then obviously the championship. So it's like, and I also would say with the Timberwolves too, I don't know if Rudy would have made that big of a difference, but I do know if Anthony Edwards would have actually played his normal self, that would have been a difference because he was
3 of 17 in that game, 0 for 9 from 3. Kyle Anderson had the game of his life. I mean, he dished out 13 huge assists in that game.
Yeah.
Was phenomenal. Mike Conley, who really doesn't put in it scoring wise, picked it up. I thought Taurean Prince has done really well in recent games on the defensive side of the ball and still contributing. I loved him when he played for the Cavs, that brief stint there. But so Martin, Lakers advanced. They claim the 7th seed. They will play the Grizzlies starting tomorrow, Sunday, as you're hearing this, listeners.
Yep.
And then in our other game, so we had the Thunder defeat the Pelicans. And Shea and Giddey both had 30 plus. Giddey flirting with a triple double, 31, 9, and 10. Shea was on it. Lou Dort, 27 points. I think he had 13 in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they just torched the Pelicans that made it a game, later down the stretch. Brandon Ingram with 30. And same old with, is it the Rudy Gobert contract or is it the Zion Williamson contract? Is the 2 worst contracts in basketball? Famously, you've got the dude, windmill dunking, while he's been out, a few months back, and but he's not good enough to play. And we're kind of getting in like this weird Ben Simmons thing where it's like, well, my doctors tell me, if you don't feel 300%, you're not going to play. He didn't play. They also didn't have Larry Nance due to injury. They dropped 123, 118, and the Pelicans bow out.
I would also say on the Pelicans front too, you had like CJ McCollum. He had a long-winded thing, but basically age-old addict. The best ability is availability, and like people should be able to play. Obviously, if
we know who that was directed,
we know who that was directed to. Zion has not played a game since January 2nd. It is April. And obviously you don't know like people's bodies and all that stuff, but it was a hamstring. This is almost the same situation, Evan, where as Buckeye fans, like we heard Jackson Smith and Jigba's thing was a hamstring. And then when he pulled it, he didn't play the rest of the year. So obviously it's either there is something more that they just don't want to tell us, which is fine. Or like you said, it's the Ben Simmons thing. It was like, is it your doctor? Is it the mental? Like, what's going on? Because he's going to ask for a lot more money, which if I'm in the front office, I have to really sit and think, like, do I want to give this man?
He just got the max. I think there's some strengths to it, but I mean, he just got the max off season.
Yeah.
David Griffin made the round saying, listen, like, you know, we're committed to him. We're gonna make this. We're going to make an investment in him. Because when he plays, and that's true. When he plays, he's a monster.
Mhm.
Like I heard on the, I think it was on the mismatch the other day. Shout out Kevin O'Connor and his team over there. But they were talking like, listen, you and I, we live in Columbus, Ohio. You and I roll up to a park in Gahanna. We can pick any NBA player we want. Martin, assume they're all healthy, assume they're all ready to rock and roll. Martin, do either of us make 15 picks and we not pick Kyle Williamson?
Oh, not that setting in the park. No.
that dude, it's gonna be like the scene in The Longest Yard where Michael Irvin like elbows dudes in the face and goes, I hit you. It's gonna be that.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a guy like that because he is such a physical force, man. You can't stop that guy.
No. I don't know, man. It's
a weird spot. He's not playing basketball.
Yeah. It's a weird spot because if he played, there was actually a point this year when they were playing that our prediction was right about them. They were at the upper of the Western Conference, and then he stopped, and then they went on a slid. Brandon Ingram still good. CJ McCollum, Valanciunas, a.k.a. Travis Kelce's twin brother. Like, they have a good team. It just needs Zion to play. And if he's not, I'm sorry, if we come into October and they say he's still not healed, things have to happen.
And they still have the Lakers picks. They still have Milwaukee picks from the Drew trade. They've got assets to do something this summer, right? They're not handcuffed necessarily. I mean, they could go in luxury tax like crazy, but I still think there's some weird fits on this team. You know, I hope for them, Jonas Valanciunas isn't a casualty. That guy could not be stopped the other night against OKC. OKC had nobody to defend him, and they did not let him shoot the ball in the third quarter. And I mean, he just was a monster underneath. I mean, he's always, I feel like, a walking 14 and 14. But they've got some assets to do stuff. Martin. So the next playing game, OKC goes on. We alluded to it already a little bit. I was a little surprised to wake up and see the score. I didn't stay up last night, but the T-Wolves clinched the 8th spot. They knocked them off, I think 120 to 95 was it? So I mean, a sizable deficit last night. Timberwolves really kept Shea and Giddey in check. Giddey was 2 of 13 from the field. Shea was 5 of 19, 12 for 12 from the line. So most of his points there. No 3-pointers. On the T-Wolves side, Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy both had 20 plus. Edwards quasi bounce back game, 8 of 19 from the floor for 19 points. And they advance their 8th seed. They will take on the Denver Nuggets. Martin, any thoughts on that, or you just want to go straight into the Nuggets series and say West real quick, and we'll kind of run through our first round?
We could stay in the West, but I just think with the Timberwolves and the Thunder matchup, it was just a size thing. Like, this was a time where the Twin Towers worked with Karl-Anthony Towns, who had himself a game. Rudy Gobert had himself a game as well. So it's just one of those things. If the Thunder can get some more front court presence, I think that game goes differently. But that's all there is to it.
Back shortly.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. But let's stay in the West, man. Let's do our first rounds in the West.
Let's do the 1-8 matchup. Who you got? How many games it's going? Any commentary on things you're looking for in the series? How you think things are going to go?
All right. So that's the Denver Nuggets versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, like we've already stated. The pressure is on Denver because this is the first time in a while that all the horses are healthy. I got 2-time MVP, the Joker, Jamal Murray. I mean, all of the guys and they got to do it, man. They are fully healthy. We've seen what this team is capable of all year. They got to do it. I think Denver wins this series in 5.
Okay. Martin, I've been watching from afar. Something's going on with the Denver Nuggets.
Okay.
I think they'll make it past the series. I'm going to take Denver in 6.
Okay.
But I feel like they were kind of clutching on to the number 1 seed towards the end, just based on the coattails of their successes in the first half of the season. Really, Martin, since March 3rd, the Denver Nuggets are 9-10. You know, I think I've seen. I'm not sure what's up, so I fully expect, we'll get to it later, I fully expect Jokic to not win the MVP this year, even though he's had some absurd offensive numbers. His defense has regressed so bad. I think back to that, big heavyweight bout between them and Joel Embiid in Philly before Joel did the cowardly,
that was on Martin Luther King Day, I believe.
Yeah, he was a traffic cone. It was so bad, and I see this over and over and over again. They pick up Reggie Jackson, off their bench. They move on to Bones Highland, who also was getting face to face with a teammate with some shoving stuff on the Clippers bench. But you're right. They got all the horses. I'm going to say, Denver with some of these struggles, and maybe the T-Wolves being a little bit frisky. It's a 6-game series, but I've got Denver advancing. Martin, what about our 2-7, Los Angeles and Memphis?
It's kind of interesting for people who listen to the wrestling side of the L7C, as the stating goes. You can't book this any better. Obviously, you had the situation with LA with Shannon Sharp and T. Morant and all of that and Jaw stuff. Now you have them playing each other in the series. You can't book it any better than that. Obviously, Evan, you were one of the first people who were really high on Memphis last year because you went to one of the games and all of that. They're back in the playoffs. Dylan Brooks is talking a lot. I feel like this one's going to go 7. I feel like it's going to go 7. And it's like how much Steven Adams is gone. I think with Steven Adams being gone, it's the biggest thing for me. I think the Lakers win this at 7.
Woo! Martin, I'm shocked. I seriously am.
The Steven Adams thing's big for me, man. I know they got Jaren Jackson.
No. It absolutely is, and I think this is a minimum 6 or 7 game series. I think because of that. So he does so much. That's a guy to contest with. Anthony Davis in the post, and LeBron in the post and stuff too. A guy who sets the hardest screens in basketball to free up your guards to let it fly from deep. Give the shooter space, off ball stuff to free up guys on second and third actions into a play. It was so tough. I will say, Martin, he was warming up on the court on their last game. For a guy who allegedly is being shut down for the season, why are you on the court warming up? Mm-hmm. I think there's a steep possibility we might. Dare I say we might see him? It might be too soon to say we might see him in the last 3 games of the series, but if they go on, I don't think he's completely written off like originally reported. Something seems, he's been out a long time, but I could see something moving there. I'll say I'm taking the Grizz in this series. I like them in 6 or 7. If you're putting me down for something, I'm going to say 6. I think what you might see is you might see the Lakers take one of the first 2 games, but we've seen when the defense slows down. I don't trust Darvin Ham's play calling or rotations, I should say. I don't trust Darvin Ham's rotations. I think he does what a lot of early coaches do. early on in their career when they're calling the shots. And I think when you see runs on the other team, you panic and you overload your stars and you throw them back in. You don't ride stuff out. You don't steady the minutes across the board. You don't let one star in with 4 guys and you swap them out. So there's always a star on the court. That I see this as, I think Memphis has more depth, has younger guys. The key factor in the series for me is, first off, I am not. Jaren Jackson is a heck of a defensive player. Everybody just looks at, look at the block stats, obviously, I'm biased with who I think should be defensive player of the year. But he's played, we're talking like some absurd amount of minutes less than everybody else. And nobody wants to talk about it. They said, well, look how many blocks he has in this game. What's key for this series, Martin, when you talk about everything that Jaren Jackson is Jaren Jackson is great. Jaren Jackson is aggressive. He pads the block sheet like nobody will see. But Martin, tell me what happens when you go for blocks as often as you do. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. But what's the other side of the coin nobody's wanting to talk about on the national level? What happens when you don't get those blocks and it's a hand and it's a wrist you're catching? And it's
you get in foul trouble, then you come out the game.
Jaren Jackson is a walking foul liability. He's routinely 4 fouls, 5 fouls, fouls out all the time. And that's why he hasn't played as many minutes as Evan Mobley, as Drew Holiday, as Brook Lopez, as all these guys. Is, wow, man, look at the block sheet. But did you have 6 fouls and didn't finish the game? And you hurt your team down the stretch when they could have used you because you're too aggressive? He's just got to figure that out, man. He's too good of a talent to be off the floor. And if that happens, we might well be in a conversation where the Lakers are winning the series. And that's a real possibility too, especially when you're going up against the likes of Anthony Davis, battling him in the post, every other night. So, but for now, I'm taking the Grizz. You got to watch that foul thing with Jaren Jackson. We'll see. And Martin, let's go to, again, back to that fun series, Kings and Warriors. We got.
All right. So you said something earlier about them copying like the Warriors movement and all of that. And again, you can't book this any better. You could potentially have a changing of the guard. Potentially, I know we like to use that a lot in the media and all that. The Kings, this could be we're officially here for the next couple of years as long as we have our pieces. And the Warriors, this is more than likely, I hate using the term now because we've been spoiled, the last dance with them, because they're not going to pay Draymond all of that money. I think he's going to be out. No. So this is the last with the presently constructed core that they drafted of Clay, Dre, and Steph. The Warriors are the 6 seed, Kings are the 3 seed. That game is going to be absolutely absurd. Game 1. I don't want to pick against the defending champs because playoffs are different than the regular season. They've been here so many times. The Kings, this is their first time back here before my youngest brother was, maybe even in diapers. But I'm going off the regular season. I got the Kings at 7 because the Warriors can't win on the road. Unless you win road playoff games, you can't win a playoff series. And with the Warriors, they're in a case where they have to at least win one road playoff game. I don't know if they can do it, man, because if you watch them this year on the road, they were terrible. Like, bad. So
bad. We've never seen this.
So I know the Kings are the underdogs from the Moneyline Vegas perspective for people out there who bet, but I got the Kings until I see something otherwise. I could obviously be wrong, and the Warriors like, we've been tricking you guys. We're gonna sweep them, but I got the Kings, man, just because of home court advantage.
Martin, this is such a tough one for me, but this is one of the most exciting series for me to watch. I still obviously would love to root against all things Golden State. Is this sort of a last dance thing? What have you? That's yet to see, but I think this goes to 7. I'm going to give the edge to the defending champs until that group healthy together can prove to me that somebody can beat them, or can prove to me that until the West League can prove to me somebody can beat them. The defending champs They've walked the walk. They've been there before. Their hands are absolutely full. I don't think this is a good team defensively. I think you're going to see all the regular stuff. I think Davion Mitchell, I think, is going to be huge coming in off the bench to defend Steph and chase him around a bunch. Physical defender. Yeah, I mean, I think across the stat sheet here, I don't think Woodson has an answer for Sabonis. Obviously, the Kings don't have an answer for Clay. Has been great. This is the best basketball Klay Thompson has played, in my opinion, in the last 2.5 seasons. He is in that rare Klay Thompson form now. They get Andrew Wiggins back from that long family matters he was away from the team about. So he is not. But he is not. He probably has been working out. He's probably been getting shots in through that time. But he has not been playing with the Golden State Warriors. So, they've probably got some things to figure out. You'll probably see early on in the series I thought Wiggins was going to be over here, and end up passing it to Steve Kerr on the bench, turnovers. I think there's enough here for it to go 7, but I'm going to give the slightest of edges to the defending champs for now, until somebody else can prove that differently.
Fair enough.
Martin, let's move on to the next series.
All right, you got the 4-5 matchup. You got the Phoenix Suns versus the Clippers. Again, you can't book something
Clippers.
Better. Strange twist of fate. You got Durant versus Russell Westbrook in the playoffs. I don't know how this league does stuff like this, but here we are. You have it.
What's the prognosis on Paul George again?
I don't believe
out for the series.
Yeah, I don't think they haven't updated anything on him. I think he's going to be out this series, and I think that's the difference. I think if he plays, the Clippers have a legit shot to win this series with Kawhi, Paul, Westbrook. He needed to get out of LA, out of the Lakers. He's played a lot better since being on the Clippers, but I have the Suns winning this one in 6.
I have the exact same, Martin. I don't think George is going to play in the first couple games of the series. I think we will see him by later on. Looks like he's getting some shots up in practice and stuff lately, just on a quick look on Twitter. But, for the Clippers, again, on paper, they were supposed to have done something by now with Kawhi. And I mean, it's just so tough. They are the definition of load management. I know George plays when he tries to play way more than Kawhi tries to play, but it's put up or shut up time. And, you were looking across at Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and you've got Chris Paul just feeding them. And, I know I'm trying to think of down there and going through too, obviously. DeAndre Ayton missed some time at the end of the regular season. I think he's in good shape coming back, but that's a huge force to deal with too. So, I'm taking the Suns as well.
Fair enough. So no sweeps. We have no sweeps in the West. Pretty competitive series. I think the least I had 1 in 5, and that was the 1-8, and you had that in 6. But we had 6, 7s, some competitive series out West. So I dig it. Can't wait to see these games. Going out East, Evan. We had the play-in games over there. You had Atlanta beating Miami, which I don't know if you've seen the Atlanta stats. They're literally the definition of mediocre, where they were 500. Like they had a stretch where it was like win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1, win 1, like
30 games. Yeah.
Yeah. I can never understand this team, man, because then they'll just randomly, again, make a run and be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, when you got a person like Trae Young who can shoot and dish the ball like he does, I'm not the biggest like Trae Young fan, but I understand what he brings to the table. But you have them advancing. And then you also had Chicago beating Toronto with the real MVP, DeMar DeRozan's young daughter, yelling at the free throws. And you're professional basketball players. You can't shoot that percentage. And I don't care who's yelling. That was abysmal.
when Chicago goes down to Miami, and then Miami secured the 8 seed. They dropped them last night. Huge Max Strus game, just lighting it up from 3. Kevin Love played a little bit more this time as they continue to watch that Enigma who didn't want to be a part of the Cavs anymore, without guaranteed minutes, essentially. But anyway, so Larry, let's start there. Your 1-8 matchup, Heat Bucks. Martin, we saw this, was it last year or 2 years ago?
We've seen this we've seen this actually a couple of times. They've actually become playoff rivals.
This is my first one. Never say never with the will of Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
And if you have a Max Strus night like you did last night, they could take the game. But I'm going to be aggressive here and say, get out the brooms. This Milwaukee team is stacked. They are deeper than they've ever been. Giannis is a top 3 MVP candidate. They've added Joe Ingles. They've added Jay Crowder. They've taken a flyer on what's his name? Miles. What's his name? The center. I'm drawing a blank. So they've added some extra. I'll get it here in a second, but they've added some extra depth. Drew is arguably one of the best defensive guards in the league. Martin, Myers Leonard. Sorry, thank you. Myers Leonard, he picked up as well too. But this team's got so much depth to it. They still got to figure out and work through this Chris Middleton thing where he's still shaky. He looks like he's put on a little bit extra weight for knee stuff. I think he's definitely had better games more recently than he had, when he first started to come back and they're working off the bench. Again, never say never, but I just don't think. I think for Miami, they really struggle to score at times. You're playing the best, arguably one of the best defensive teams in the league. Not just, of course, I'll be the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm taking a sleep.
Okay. I don't see anything wrong with that. It's just with the will of Jimmy and what I've seen, I think he could get you 1 game. So I'm just and I think that'd be game 4 in Miami when they're down 3-0, and then it'd be it. So I give it to the Bucks in 5.
2-7. So back to those Atlanta Hawks, those risky Atlanta Hawks at times, and the Boston Celtics. You're right. I think it's so hard to predict with Atlanta. I definitely like the steps and stuff they're running with Quinn Snyder. Now as their coach, Trey has arguably ran off in another one. But I think some of the growth we've seen, adding Sadiq Bey for the Hawks side of things. Obviously, they've got Bogdanovich. They went all in and acquired. Murray this offseason. I think they're a crispy enough team to for sure take a game. Can they take that second one though? I'm going to say they potentially can. Boston's had a long layover here. There's obviously they're winning the series, but whether it's 5 games, whether it's 6, Boston wins it. I've got Boston. I'm going to give the Celtics a little bit more credit and say they take this in 5. Not take a game. They might end up taking 2 though. But Martin, what are your thoughts?
Boston's interesting. They were obviously a top team for most of the year. Jason was an early MVP candidate. Obviously, with the stuff with Udoka, who you and I have talked about on pod before, our viewpoints and all of that, for them to bounce back from that and still be a top 2 seed. This is obviously the Eastern Conference champions from last year. It's just, I got Boston in 6 games against Atlanta. I think Atlanta's going to get 2 games, and then Boston will just close it out. But I got them in 6.
Martin, 4 hours from now, the first NBA playoff game tips off between the wing heavy now Brooklyn Nets without Benjamin Simmons. Just had to say that for you. And the Philadelphia 76ers in the 3-6 matchup. On this front, I definitely think this is the best basketball James Harden and Joel Embiid have played together. Mm-hmm. I think Joel Embiid is obviously impossible to guard. It is I think you get out the batons. I think the Ohio State University marching band drum majors should be here because it's going to be like it always is in the Philadelphia 76er game. It's going to be long. There's going to be literally somebody walking a parade to the free throw line because they are grifting foul hunters like I've never seen before, and it's frustrating. But it's just reality that's how they're officiated somehow, and everything is a yell at the ref. You're Joel and Harden and these guys. The Sixers are winning this series. I don't think it's a sweep. I'm going to say it's in 5, maybe 6, but there's just Bridges has been so good, Martin, for Brooklyn. The wings they could continue to throw and throw. I love the depth they have. Still got Steph Curry shooting an absurd amount. I think at one point this year, percentage-wise, he was shooting better than Steph in the 40s. So I like the Sixers in 5 in this one. And then obviously the real fun, the Eastern Conference gets set in the second round here. But what about you?
Man, I think the Sixers are going to advance. I'm trying to decide on the game because like Mikal Bridges, like he doesn't miss games. And
Nick Claxton's no pushover in the post against Embiid either.
No, and the fact that this team lost Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in the same year, and I guess you could quote unquote say they lost Ben Simmons, but whatever. And they lost all those 3 people in the same year. And Vaughn has gotten this team to the playoffs with Mikal Bridges, Nick Claxton. And do we have games where Cam goes absolutely nuts and drops a random 40 ball? It's like
he was a DNP a couple times at the end of the stretch, which was a head scratcher. But I mean, he's certainly capable. He showed us he had 3 games in a row early in the year where he did. It's possible. I think their best case scenario is they take 2 games. I just don't see them.
Yeah, it won't go past
winning the series or winning a third. Yeah, no, I don't see them
100%
going.
I got max 6, but minimum. I think max would go 6, but I could see beating 5 with the Sixers.
Martin, let's get to the best matchup. And I'm not being sarcastic either. Obviously, we're biased. We know this is the best matchup. It's tonight at 6. And people around the league are talking about this as potentially.
Before you go, Evan, do you want to say we did call it Cavs 50-plus wins this year, minimum, and we got it.
We did. We got it. There were some games, obviously, they could have. I think there's some games down the stretch just enigmas that they should have won. What a season! Cavs' first time making the playoffs without a LeBron James on their team since 1998. Their first time winning 50 wins without a LeBron James on their team since 1993. It might have been 93, 94. Martin, what a season. They are number 2 in net efficiency. They are number 1 defensively. The anchors are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They've weathered the storm around injuries. Donovan Mitchell had a groin thing he was battling. People stop poking Darius Garland in the eye. For the love of everything, please leave that more man space alone. Probably 5 or 6 times this year. They weathered that off the season with Gary Trent Jr. in the first game, putting him down for 7-8 with his just nasty eye contusion, trying to go for a ball and inbound and just scrape the ever-living you-know-what out of his eye. But that being said, so the Knicks, after a really bad year last year, have resurged. A lot of people are going to talk about, hey, they could have traded for Donovan Mitchell too, and they didn't want to give up RJ Barrett, yada, yada, yada. And obviously, Donovan's from the area. His dad's involved in the Knicks organization. He thought he was going there until he didn't. He's obviously a happy camper now. Donovan Mitchell is that dude. So if we talk about the X's and O's of the series, 15 hours ago per Twitter on Woj's thing, there was a lot of discussion about where's Julius Randle at. I expect Julius Randle to play in Game 1 tonight, Martin. I didn't think that was the case yesterday when I woke up, but apparently they've been ramping up some of his shooting stuff, so he's going to be a problem. For the Cavs side of things, injury-wise, Isaac Okoro did not play in their most recent game, where you each had Brunson and Mitchell going for 35 plus. The Knicks won that game. Isaac Okoro is a difference maker on the defensive side of the ball. He's in that that Lou Dort realm. He's in that maybe 65, 70% of a Marcus Smart realm. Not to belittle anything. I mean, he's still got much to go to be Marcus Smart, but he's been banged up. You need a guy like that just pounding him all game, Jalen Brunson, for the Cavs. So both teams got some injuries to some key starters. Jared Allen didn't play in that last game either, so you get him back. So obviously you got some more depth in the post. Obviously, I'm taking the Cavs in the series. The Cavs, this is the first time they're coming into their own as a young team. I think JD still has some quirky rotations at times. There's times where, I feel like he doesn't play Jetty Osmond enough. And I get why sometimes on the defensive end, but that guy is a shot maker more times he is than he's not. I think I like this going 6. It's 4-2. Evan Mobley has been a monster. When Jared Allen was out, he picked up a load offensively. A lot of 20 and 10 games, a lot of flirting with 20 and 10 games. We know what he brings to the floor defensively. He gets out there to the 3-point line. He contests on shooters. He is a problem. They're going to need him against Julius Randle attacking the basket. Keeping that team off the glass. The Knicks are frisky in every sense of the word, but I definitely expect them to take a couple games here. And this could go 7-2, Martin, but I've got the Cavs coming out on the other side of it.
Gotcha. Like you already said, this matchup 4-5, Cleveland 51-31, New York 47-35. I've watched a lot of Cavs games this year, and I've watched a good amount of New York games with Randall's explosions, Brunson's explosions, a player who has truly emerged, who is a candidate who may win 6 Man of the Year, who concerns me from a Cavs perspective, Emmanuel Quickly, because what is he going to do against Cleveland? But with the combination of Mitchell, Garland, and if everyone does their jobs,
Josh Hart will be huge.
Yeah, Josh Hart as well. It's just I really do like Emmanuel Quickly. I got the Cavs in 7. I think this one goes 7. I really think this could be Cavs can win the first 2 at home, Knicks win the next 2, then it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I can see them going back and forth the whole series, but this was going to be the most entertaining one from a matchup perspective because these teams are very evenly matched. And I think the Cavs win in 7 games. And as an Ohioan, that'd be great. But objectively, I wouldn't be surprised if New York won. Do I want them to win? No, but I would not be surprised. That's how good this series should be.
And that's why home court, you're exactly right. That's why home court matters. The Cavs are 31-10.
Yeah.
At Rocket Mortgage this season. Obviously in the last one they dropped and didn't play a whole lot. So obviously, but just resting starters once Stafford and secured luck at that point. You might have another win so there too. But which would tie them for the most with Milwaukee and Boston taking care of home court. They're 20-21 on the road. The Knicks are fairly consistent. They're 23-18 at home, 24-17 on the road. We're going to have some great Donovan Mitchell games. We're going to have some great Jalen Brunson games in the series. I really think, if we look at 6 as kind of the middle spot potential on where the series could go one way or another, depending on, are we looking at 6, we're staying at 6, is there a conversation for something absurd about 5? Is there? I don't think so, but is there somebody going 7 and who's winning? I think Julius Randle and how healthy healthy he is going to be the huge part of the series. That is everything. I mean, the Cavs do not have a 6'8" to 6'10" wing defender that can move with him. Mobley is such a utility knife that he can adapt and guard whoever, whenever, out in the perimeter, in the post, you name it. With Jared Allen, a security blanket out back. Isaiah Hartenstein, I think, is going to play a lot in the series for the Knicks. From a distribution side of things, he's phenomenal. Directing traffic in the high post. You're going to have a quickly game at home for sure. But it's going to be a good series, Martin. I'm excited. Starts at 6 tonight as we record on Saturday, the 15th.
It's going to be great, man. These NBA playoffs are going to be very interesting. I think that all these games, I don't think there's going to be any real, I don't think there's going to be a sweep in any series, which is good because these things are going to be competitive, maybe some 5 games. I see a lot of 6s, a couple 7s, but it's going to be really good. I cannot wait. Starts today, 1 p.m., first game of the playoffs. You got the Nets and the Sixers at 1 p.m. Then 3:30, you got Boston, Atlanta game 1. Like you already said, Cavs, Knicks at 6. And then 8:30 p.m., their first game on ABC in almost 2 decades, the Kings and the Warriors. To wrap this pod up, Evan, Friday, they announced the award finalists. I know they've been doing this for a couple of years where they just announce the 3 and they do their post-game, like their post-season show or whatever. But 3 ones really going to talk about really quickly. We had MVP. You had Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid being those 3 that are final 3 for MVP. I think we're both thinking that it's going to be Embiid's time this year, but obviously with Joker's monster numbers on, kind of feel like Giannis was slighted at the beginning of the year. We said don't be surprised if he wins MVP. I think I picked him to win MVP, which if you look at his team and what he's done, we used to go best record, best player on the best team. That's what we were doing. And he's the best player on the best team and he has a number. So I'm like, why is he's going to be a distant 3rd, which I think is going to be atrocious.
These award voters have a tendency again to who's the new guy I can ascend with that vote. They have like voter fatigue for whatever reason, and I think Giannis will be slighted a little bit of this. I think how Jokic's season has ended, honestly, I'd have Giannis at number 2.
I would too.
I really would, but I think this is finally the year Joel gets over the hump. He is your 22-23 NBA most valuable player. He's doing stuff that, it just reminds you a lot of Shaq. He's been doing that for years, but this year, aggressively, he's taking it on. The only asterisk is just, again, just trying to not play against him when he could have for sure wrapped this thing up. And just, because he would have feasted, because Jokic is just so bad defensively for whatever reason right now. I just don't know. Martin, let's move on to clutch player finalists. A new award this year. New award. We have Jimmy Butler. We have DeMar DeRozan. We have De'Aaron Fox. I think it's Fox here. There's just been so many late Kings games, and part of that's going to hurt is there's so many voters that are East Coast folks who don't stay up and watch those 10:30 West Coast tips and stuff. So we might get a little crazy here on some things. I definitely think Jimmy and DeMar are great. We know you can go to them ISO and the wings and their money on mid-range pull-ups and stuff and those kinds of things. But, I think De'Aaron just so head and shoulders above that he's going to be the inaugural winner of this.
I agree. I have nothing to add. I think De'Aaron takes it.
Rookie of the Year, our
That's
3 finalists, Mr. Walker Kessler, Jalen Williams, who's really come on late, Paolo Banchero. Martin Paolo came out hot. First 20 games of the season, 30 games of the season, and then he struggled a little bit in there, and Jalen Williams emerged later on. Really had a solid run, averaging 14 points a game. Just really great and part of the OKC Jalen do enough to unseat Paolo? I don't think so. But
I don't think
it certainly
so.
made things a question and down the stretch more than we would have with a runaway winner.
Yeah, I don't think so either. If I do remember, I don't know if it was recent. I just want to make sure. I thought I saw something where like he's someone else is voting. I don't know if his voting got leaked or I don't know. I thought I saw something, but Twitter. But I think Pablo is just going to win it. I think the other two came on too late and he was already ahead. I think Pablo wins it pretty handily.
Defensive player, Martin. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. My vote's going to Evan Mobley, who, I mean, he's getting some big eyes now. Ryan Russillo and Bill Simmons both said he's getting his vote. He's stayed over 1,000 more minutes. I don't know the exact number. I think it's like 1,600 or 1,800 more than Jaren Jackson. He stays on the court. He doesn't block hunt. He does all elements of the game. Martin, you're defending the final possession of Game 7 of the NBA Finals. You have three options ahead of you: Brook Lopez, Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson. There's so many different potentials here. You have on the defensive side of the ball, you could be put in a pick and roll and you're defending a guard. You could be you could have the opposing team's best wing or post player attacking the bucket. You could have them getting it on the block. You need somebody prepared for all those different settings. You need length, which all three of these folks have. You need quick feet. You need to be able to contest and contest without fouling. Obviously, I've teed it up here for one guy. Tell me the answer is not Evan Mobley, the guy you want defending that.
I mean, I do. I think with this one, I have two things: who I would like to win and who I think the voters are going to go for. Obviously, I would like Evan Mobley to win, but I think the voters are going to go Jaren Jackson Jr. And I'm also basing it off of last year when we were with Evan last year that Mobley should have been clear cut. He should have been Rookie of the Year, and he was not, and he lost to Scotty Barnes, which we've seen how that's turned out. But I'm still kind of miffed about that they went that way. So I think they're just going to go Jaren Jackson because of the stats, and also with Brook Lopez too. He's had a great year, but I just feel like who I want to win, Mobley. Who I think the voters are going to vote for because of statistics, Jackson.
I think so. Yeah, I think so too. Unfortunately, but this is sometimes you see that like in this debate of the year you don't win is the year your name gets sent for next year.
I agree. And then you had most improved. Most improved. You have to
finish second to go first. So.
That's true. That's true. So
most improved: Jalen Brunson, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lauri Markkanen. Martin, in my eyes, two are well-established stars who made very impactful marginal increases in their points per game.
Mm-hmm.
But one came out of nowhere and was a starter in the All-Star game. Former Cleveland Cavalier Lauri Markkanen.
No,
that too, I think, should deserve this award. You gotta stop giving the most improved to established scoring bucket stars, what have you. And the jump Lowry made to be a starter in the Western Conference, alongside LeBron. There's always so many different wing options that was the guy.
That's a good one.
Utah wasn't supposed to do what they did this year.
Yeah, they also shout out to Utah. They also fell off a cliff. They lost games down the stretch.
They needed to win. I mean, they needed to desperately though. The draft status.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. Before you said stop giving it to, it made me think of the John Morant thing because I was just full heartedly just gonna go SGA because obviously he was established, but now he is a top 10 player in the association, which he was not last year. That is improvement. But you said it correctly, especially at the beginning, middle of the year, what Markkanen was doing was absurd. So you swayed me. You swayed me on that statement with the stop giving to established people because he wasn't established. So I am going to go marketing with you. You swayed me on that. I still love SGA, but I'm going marketing. That was good. That was a really good line that made me have to stop and think.
Now, is that going to happen or not? And Shay's not going to get it. Who knows? But because Shay may well end up getting this too. But it is what it is. Martin. So let's go to 6-man. We have.
I think this is the toughest one.
Malcolm Brogdon. Bobby Portis. Let me do something on Bobby Portis and Emmanuel Quickley. I fully expect that Emmanuel Quickley is going to get this award. Mm-hmm. Just just that heat check guy coming in and just really had some games. I don't know why Sid has not played him until the last 20-25 games where I think he secured it, but giving him minutes and those kinds of things. But Bobby Portis has been so huge when Giannis gets those rest games. When Brook Lopez is out for a little bit, this guy competes. He competes hard. He gets those offensive rebounds and putbacks. He can knock down the three. He has been huge for Milwaukee, the number one team, the best record in the league. He gets his flowers. Brogdon, obviously, to be named amongst these three, you got to put in the work and do good things. And he's been great running the second unit with the Celtics. But I got Quickley.
You know what? I'm going Bobby Portis. He deserves it. Do I think he's going to win? No. I'm going Bobby. I actually do. I've liked Bobby since especially that run that the Bucks had in the playoffs when they won the championship. And I feel like he's improved a lot since then. So I was like, but I got Bobby, 6th man of the year. If you can give your best player substantial rest minutes, and obviously he's not the quality player that Giannis is, but they're still not missing as much of a beat because he comes off the bench and he can have like 15 to 20 rebounds. Like, he's a monster.
How are you doing this?
I got Bobby. And obviously, Evan, Coach of the Year, I don't think there's any discussion who it should be.
Mike Brown.
Yep. That just leave it at that. I think that is nice. I don't know why Missoula is an option. That's just me.
Yeah, I just don't. I mean, you inherited such a good team. J.B. Bickerstaff, poor guy. I just don't get. Wasn't even thought about last year. Brought the Cavs back into the play-in. 50 wins this year to not even be in the candidate pool.
Yeah, two out of the three are right. Like Mike Brown, Mark from Oklahoma City. I don't understand the Missoula thing at all. That's your team went to the finals.
Mark in Oklahoma City because nobody knows how to say that dude's last name, myself included.
Yeah, nobody.
But nobody. Yeah, Mike Brown gets it for resurrecting the Sacramento Kings here in a 1-year turnaround job. So, Martin, I know we got a lot of basketball ahead of us. We'll be back to preview different rounds of this and finals and everything else. I know you've got a hard out today. I've got a hard out. I'm running a little bit late for us. I'm excited for the playoffs to start here in another couple hours.
I'm excited too. I know I'm hoping the playoffs deliver in terms of viewership and competitiveness because the NBA, more than ever, the scrutiny about the load management, the quality of the games and things of that nature have been really in the light. So I'm really hoping the playoffs deliver this year and show that it is still a good product.
Well, with that, a lot of basketball to be played. When time affords us, we'll touch base a little bit on next pod about some of the new changes in the CBA.
Yes.
I think there's some interesting things there. There's the new play-in tournament. There's a 65-game minimum to be played to be eligible for awards. There's a lot of interesting, the rookie extension piece there. Previously, Cavs couldn't have signed Evan Mobley to a rookie extension because you have essentially Donovan Mitchell on one, Darius Garland on one, and you can't have three on the same team. So there's a change there, but we'll touch base on other things after round 2 and let the games begin.
All right. With that being said, this is the L7C podcast. Playoffs are starting this Saturday, April 15th. Take care. Signing out. Let's go Cavs.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.